Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in. In this video I'll be going over five specific cool things that are specific to the e-tron compared to, I guess you can say, other Audi models, the non-electric traditional Audi models. So in this video everything is going to be an e-tron specific feature, and we can look forward to these features being introduced to the e-tron GT and when Audi starts introducing more models into the range. So let's get started by turning the car on. Push button starts right there. Everything comes to life. There's that intro sound. So first thing on the list is you can notice the paddle shifters behind the wheel. And in a traditional car, those will obviously shift through the gears once you put the car into manual mode. And if you were to take a look at the gauge cluster right now, basically you have a big range meter in the center here, which in other models that would be a fuel meter, which would only be up there. There would not be really any green type of display graphic like that, so that is actually specific. Now if you looked over at the left, which usually would be a tachometer, that's going to be your power indicator. So if you're using regen or if you're on the gas, this will show you how much percent you are currently using. But now I want you to pay attention to the paddle shifters. So if you look down here in the corner, you can see how there's the regen section of the gauge here. So if I were to go ahead and click the paddle once, you can see it goes and shows you a little line for what you can call regen stage 1. And then if you would go ahead and hit it again, you get regen stage 2. So now if I were to hit the other paddle, you can see that it goes the opposite direction. So basically the standard level here will allow the car to coast until you hit the brake, and then it will throw in very gradual, I guess you can say, regen braking. And then once you go into mode 1, it's going to be more so. Not enough to really bring the car down if you're going down speed. If you're going down a hill, you're going to still have to probably use the brakes in this mode, but definitely more than that kind of coasting feel that you get in a more traditional car that's not using engine braking. And then finally, this more aggressive mode is when you actually start to feel some substantial braking. Again, not as aggressive as other brands like Tesla, but it does will actually start bringing the car to a stop for you. Not completely. You're going to still have to apply the brakes, unfortunately, but it definitely does provide a lot more aggressiveness compared to the standard coasting feature. So now, next in the list, we're going to actually switch over here to this main screen. We're going to go into the navigation mode. And as you can see, the map comes up on the screen. So now, if I were to actually start pinching out on this, what you'll notice is a giant blue bubble, or blue circle, I guess you can call, that will estimate with everything in its current setting your max distance of how far you can drive this car in one direction. And obviously over time this will gradually start shrinking, and it's a very nice feature. So let's say if you're planning a trip to Boston, for instance, from New York, you can kind of zoom out here and you can see, oh, that's a little bit too far for the car currently on its current charge rating, so we would have to probably implement going to a charging station for that route. So it's just a nice little thing to see, kind of like to give you an overview if you think you can make it or not. And it's a very cool thing that they put in the car. I'm glad that they did that. Now, speaking of this, let's say if I were to go ahead and drop a pin over here near Boston, and if I were to go ahead and say start,
the route is being calculated.
As you can see, it's going to show,
please drive to the route shown,
that the battery is insufficient, and it wants you to throw some charging stations onto the route, so you say okay. And then it's going to list you, basically depending on what your current range is, a lot of different parameters. It's going to list you what stations it's going to want you to go to. So you can see that by the time we get to this Massachusetts station, it's going to be, let's say it's 4:23 now, so roughly 3 hours, 153 miles. And we should have 10% left, I believe. And then this one would be a 20% after that. So as you can see, it plans the route according to the computer figuring everything out. And we're going to want to charge for 48 minutes at that first station, basically. So you say accept, and it's going to go basically
Please
straight into
drive
the
to
route.
route shown.
Now, you can see here in this alternative routes section, if you were to go ahead and click that, it will give you kind of an overview and show you those charging stations along the route. So you can see here where it's going to want you to stop to get charged. So that's pretty much the uniqueness of the navigation system. Now next is going to be a specific range mode, and to go along with that there is an eco mode for the AC. So if you look down here, you can see that the AC button currently says AC Eco. If I were to click that, it'd go off. Click it, goes to traditional AC, so that's the full maximum AC. And AC Eco mode basically is just there for the range anxiety type of person. I'm sitting in the car, it's about 80 degrees out, and it is doing a pretty good job. I think maybe on a really, really hot day you're going to want to not use the Eco, but for most normal days up here on the East Coast, maybe down in Texas or down in the southern part of the country, you're not going to really want to use that feature. But up here, it is doing a decent job at keeping me cool. So now let's go into here. Let's go into home. We're going to go into vehicle, and then we're going to go into vehicle information. And you can see now it actually gives you suggestions up here of how to increase range. Again, another thing for range anxiety. So if you were to turn off the climate control altogether, you'd get plus 14 miles. And then basically down here there's a range mode button. And in here you can see it says it maximizes the current remaining range by using a speed limiter. And you can override that by kicking the pedal fully to the floor, which is a kick down. And it will limit things like climate control. So as I turn this on, you can see the car actually does lower itself a little bit. It's going to be hard to see on camera, but it does. It goes down one setting on the suspension. The climate control basically is disabled, even though it is still blowing out a little bit of cool air. And as you can see on the gauge cluster here, you do have your zone for efficient driving. So it shows that it should allow you to go up to 55 miles an hour. I haven't really tested it. I'm not sure if it will actually let you break through that, but it seems like it is limiting you to the 0 to 55 mile an hour range, and it's going to definitely be reducing your throttle sensitivity as well. And as soon as you turn that back off, that goes away, and you can see the range goes from 163 with it off to 177 with it on. So that's a cool feature that they threw in here. Now, next is going to be over here in the same vehicle settings area. We're going to go to climate control. And as you can see, this is a Prestige, so you do have the ionizer and the perfume coming in, which is a very cool feature. Not unique to the e-tron, just figured I'd share that with you guys. Up here in the corner here, you have a little thermostat looking thing. And this is going to be your auxiliary air conditioning timer. So you can actually program two different schedules for the air conditioning to turn on before you even get in the car. So by the time you get in the car, it's perfectly cool, ready for you to go. And as you can see in here, you can also throw on window and mirror heat, and you can start AC after unlocking if you want to postpone that to save some battery. Let's say the car is not plugged in. And then you do have the choice of setting it automatic or choosing manual temperature down on that lower screen when you set it on or off. So basically the easiest way to go about this is leave everything in auto, because the car is going to use the ambient temperature to decide what comfortable temperature is going to be for humans to be inside the car once you get going. But again, that is another cool feature. And finally, we're actually going to go into Drive Select, which is also in the vehicle settings. And as you can see, there's your typical range of modes which you would get in other Audis. But I found it interesting that there's an efficiency setting for the Drive Select, which will basically alter your throttle sensitivity to provide slower acceleration, and it will provide more regen braking built in. Actually, as you can see, it automatically puts the car down in that lower setting. And if you were to go down to individual, you can see there is a efficiency select mode for the drive system. So if you wanted the sporty steering and sporty suspension, you can still have the car being in its most range-friendly setting, which I find pretty cool. So that's pretty much the 5 things that I found very interesting, specific e-tron electric car things. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos. Take care.